Hi guys, welcome back to Classic Hi-Fi Reviews. Today we are looking after a turntable, so we haven't been looking after a turntable in a long time. And so this is not your normal, not your usual turntable, because it is a linear tracking one. It's the SL-J1. And before we are getting into that, I just want to explain the differences between a linear tracking turntable compared to a conventional turntable, because some of you might not be aware of this. So a linear tracking turntable is moving horizontally across the record. So the arm is always in the same 90-degree angle to the record, not in a different angle like you would have that with a conventional turntable. So the conventional turntable would introduce tracking errors, and that's something you would not have using a linear tracking turntable. So you might ask why, if this is better, why was this not introduced right from the beginning? Well, it requires a lot more engineering to do something like that. So later than in the 70s and 80s, the means were there to build something like that. And we saw the first linear tracking turntables. And I believe the first one that got onto the market, that was one actually from Bang & Olufsen. And later other big players adopted that concept, and later on Technics was actually quite popular with the different lines of linear tracking turntables. So just as a reminder, so this is how a conventional turntable works. So you have one pivot point and the arm is moving across the record, and here you can see that definitely we do not have a 90-degree angle, and depending on where the arm is on the record, the way the record is played back will vary slightly. So sometimes if it's not a well set up arm, or if you have a stylus that is getting closer to its end of life, then you will hear these tracking errors as distortions in the signal. So going back to the Technics linear tracking turntable, so very popular are the Technics SL-7, and even more popular the Technics SL-10. So the SL-10, introduced already in 1979, is an extremely high-end linear tracking turntable, and it's a well-built unit. The whole case that you can see here is out of cast aluminium, and back that days Technics even had some advertising that this turntable can play actually upside down, which is really true, because the record is really sandwiched from the top to the bottom in this turntable, and the arm is completely motor controlled, and no disturbances from the outside would really matter that much. Very similar fashion is the Technics SL-7, so obviously the bit of a lower end model, but also well built. The bottom case is made out of cast aluminium, and the back I believe as well. And both turntables are very similar. They use the same mechanism, the same linear tracking arm mechanism like the other one. One big difference between both of them is that the SL-10 actually comes with a moving magnet cartridge and has a built-in preamplifier that you can turn on in the back to amplify for the lower signal that you are getting from a moving magnet cartridge, compared to a moving coil cartridge, to compensate for that. That's something the Technics SL-7 does not have, and it also came with a moving magnet cartridge just by default. So going now into the SL-J1. So the SL-J1 was produced from 1984 to 1985, so almost like a successor to the other two models. So these units are mainly made out of plastic, and the SL-J1 is the entry-level model. There was also an SL-J2 and 3. So the SL-J2 and 3 are actually direct drive ones. This SL-J1 is a belt-driven linear tracking turntable. So I wasn't even aware that something like that existed, and so it's quite interesting for me also to have a look at this particular unit. If you ever come across one of these Technics SL-7, 10 or J1, 2 or 3, they probably all use a very similar tracking mechanism for the arm, and they are being serviced all in a similar fashion, I would say. So if you're looking at the video today, I hope that you can find some useful tips and hints if you ever pick up one of these guys and you are keen how to service that one. All right, so I think that's enough talking. So let's get into the actual unit and see what the SL-J1 that we have here on the bench actually needs to be working properly. Okay, so here we got the SL-J1. That's the condition in how I got it. It's a bit dirty and the cover is quite scratched, so I hope we can polish that out. That would definitely make a difference in its presentation. And also here these buttons doesn't look great. Maybe there's something we can just rub off. But before we get into that, just a bit of an explanation around how these units do work and what's special about them. So we got the power button here then on the left side, obviously, and as that label here says, it's computer controlled linear tracking tone arm. These units working completely automatically, so there is no intervention. You don't have to drop the arm manually or anything. The arm is in the lid, so there is no access even if you want to operate that unit. So you have to close the lid and then you have to push the start button, for example, to start the playback of the record. The unit has some detection mechanism to figure out if you have like a small single on it or an LP, so that it is making sure that the arm is dropped on a record and it's not dropped onto the platter, for example, to damage the stylus. And so that's definitely something that that a unit like this need to have. Okay, after start and you have enough listen to your record, you can just hit stop button and it will return the arm. But it will also do obviously an auto return after the LP has finished. And then we got here skip search buttons. So maybe you don't want to listen to the entire record, so you can use these buttons to move the arm across the surface of the record and pick a certain track you would like. With this button you would lift the tone arm up and bring it back down again. And we also got a repeat function. Okay, so when we open the turntable, we see a few more controls here. So that's more regarding how you want to set it up that the turntable should operate. So we got here a size a detection function, auto and manual. I'm not sure how this can work with manual detection, so that's something we probably need to check with the operating instructions. And we got a sensor sensitivity, so that's something you usually see on turntables that are capable of detecting different tracks. So I start to wonder if it's possible with this turntable to, similar with a CD player, to skip from track to track. It's something you can't do with an SL-7 or an SL-10, for example. You're just limited really to lift up the tone arm and move it across the record. And then we also got this speed selection here. It's currently on auto, so the way that works is if you got an LP on it, it will detect it as a large size record and play it back at 33. If you put in a 7-inch single, it will detect that there is a smaller record on the platter and it will switch to 45. This is not going to work if you're using a 12-inch maxi single, because it's as big as the LP, and then you would kind of need to intervene here and switch it manually to 45. So, and you might have spotted that already. So in the top bit here is where all the magic is happening. So we got the tone arm here that is moving across the record. It also has a stylus, and when I touch it carefully, it seems that the stylus is still alright, so that's really good news. The platter here, what we learned, is belt driven, so we need to check if it still has a belt and if the belt is alright. And last thing I wanted to mention here is this built-in 45 RPM adapter. So there is supposed to be a spring below this, so you just twist it, it pops up, yeah, and you put on your 7-inch record your single and use a built-in adapter for that. So there is no function, it doesn't come out, so that I would assume that the spring is missing. So let's, as a first step, let's take off the platter and have a look if we still got a belt. Okay, so that's the rubber mat, and I can see there is indeed still a belt here on it. It doesn't feel that it still has a lot of tension, but at least there is still a belt. So let me remove the bladder here. And yeah, so here you can see there's also one of these plastic things broken off here. But maybe it's not a big issue, but we can put a spring in there. I need to check if I have something that would fit so that we can bring this function of this built-in 45 RPM adapter back. Yeah, so we got here the motor with its pulley spinning the bladder, the main shaft. Looks actually pretty good, pretty clean. So we leave it here. Let's put that guy back on. The belt back in here. A little adapter. Come on. Okay. And the rubber mat. And let's have a look at the back of the turntable. So on the back we got this one here. This is to synchronize recording. So when you start, and assume you have like a Technics stereo system, you start recording, start playback. The record on your cassette deck will, for example, start when it's in record pause. So that's something that has been done here through the synchro record plug. Then we got here two RCA plugs for the audio signal, and this one here is like similar to a 3.5mm jack. This is for ground, so it would not exactly fit in. It came with a special harness, so we need to do a little trick here to have the grounding wire again in place, but that's a simple fix, and I will show you how we can do that. And this is a figure 8 socket for power. Yeah, so that's how we get power into the device. Yeah, and they also have here put on the label the replacement stylus for the cartridge that's in here. So it's an EPS-30CS. So that's always good when you've got that kind of information on a turntable. That makes life a bit easier. Okay, and last but not least, I also want to show that we have a bit of a scale here. So this scale shows us how far the turntable has progressed into the record. There's usually a red light on the arms, at least of the SL-7 and 10, so I assume that will be the case of this unit here as well. So that makes it easy to see from the top where we are roughly, and how much time is probably left on the record that you're just playing back. Okay. So not sure what this unit will need. So far it seemed to, the belt seemed to be in good condition. So maybe we are also lucky and the tone arm moves. Yeah, we will go through a service anyway, because the old rubber should not remain in there, and we also want to check if we need to renew lubricants that are necessary for a smooth operation. But let's see if it even turns on. So we got figure 8 power cable here. We just plug that in. It's a bit tight. Okay. And we press power on. And that looks good. And we can see the little light here on that arm. So it has the same like the other Linol tracking turntables. I think that's really neat with that light here. Okay, so next step will be we try out a record. I got one here, just some random old record, and we give it a go. So I close the lid, hit the start button, and it's spinning, and it's starting to play back. That's crazy. Excellent. Okay, so it looks like we actually got a working turntable. So now I'm just curious what happens if I hit the skip button. So if it just lifts the arm and I have to move it across by holding it, or it actually can do a title skip. So let's skip the first title and hit that button. Okay, it goes back into neutral position and moves across. And it actually goes to the next track. Oh, that's awesome. That's definitely one trick more that the SL-J7 got up his sleeve compared to my SL-10 or SL-7. and they are going for a lot more money than definitely a unit just like this. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I love it. But even though everything seems to be working so far all right, we still have to go into the unit and restore it, and we need to replace rubber parts and stuff. So I wouldn't let it go out without any service work. Yeah? But it's good to see that everything is working. That makes our life a lot easier. There's not really much troubleshooting required. It's just really just like a bit of servicing that we are going to do. Okay, all right. So let's dive straight into that and take apart the arm mechanic that is here hidden in the cover of the turntable, and see what kind of belt we need to replace the old tired one, and what other stuff we have to do. Okay, so we're on the SL-7 or SL-10. You got a lot of screws that you have to get rid here from the inside, but with this SL-J series it seems to be a lot easier. There are just these plastic packs here on the side, and we just need to peel them out. And once we do that, we should be able to lift the entire top case off, and then we can easily service the entire turntable mechanic. So let's do that. I thought I'd try one of these prying tools here. I'm not sure if this is going to help me for that one, but maybe with this one I can just get in between. Yeah, without really scratching anything. So that's already good. And I can pull out the inner sleeve here. Excellent. And for this one I probably have to use a screwdriver, unless I'm be able to get under. No, I get under it. Okay. Pull that one out. Can't get the inner sleeve now like that. Okay, maybe I'll get this screwdriver out for that. And we are doing the same on the other side. Let's put that here in between. Get this one out. Come on. Okay. And same for this one. Which way ever works. Okay, here we go. And that's it. Other one is out. And now we should be able to take off the lid. Here we go. And we can see where all the magic is happening. So this is here the rail where we got the arm moving back and forth. And there's some old, really sticky grease on it, so we definitely want to clean that off. And on this side, and again that's very similar to the SL-7 and 10, you got the belt here that is driving this mechanism. When you spin it by hand, you can see how all of that is moving. Yeah, and this belt definitely is not looking too great anymore, so it took on already quite a shape. Not sure if you can see that, and yeah, it's quite dry and will definitely require some replacement. Okay, so we will look for a new belt here and start cleaning off that rail, and use some new lubricant, a synthetic lubricant that will not be going sticky. And then we had a missing spring for the 45 RPM adapter, and I think we just discovered the spring here because this is not supposed to be here, and that must be the spring that goes on there. So excellent, great find. So we will be using this then to fix that one later on, and also install, of course, a new belt for the bladder. Okay, all right. Yeah, and here's a bit of a view of the tone arm unit. You can see here the red arrow that is lighting up to see to enable us to see the position of the arm, and then you have here this movement of the tone arm that goes up and down. And we can see the P308 cartridge that is installed here. So that's the original Technics one. And yeah, there's also some more glue residue. Sorry, not glue. There's some more lubricant residue here. somebody went in here and was really generous with the lubricants. I think with the help of some IPA and some paper towels we should be able to get rid of that. I wonder if we can leave the arm in or if we want to remove it, but I think we are fine. We are not touching this here too much. I just don't want to damage the stylus on this unit. Okay, so let's do that. Let me get some IPA and some paper towels, and we clean up the old grease. Okay, just cover this here a bit. And we just go about it. Okay. On the other turntables, you actually do not use some liquid lubricant. It's actually lubricated with graphene powder. But here, obviously, it is some sort of grease that has been applied. So we will be doing the same. Clean this off here a little bit. I'm not sure if something touches that surface here. I don't think so. And there's some more lubricant left here. This certainly also moves a bit over that surface here. So let's clean that up as well. And we will be using some lithium grease in that area. Okay. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we managed to clean up in this area, but not on the other part. So we just going to spin this here manually, the unit, to have the arm moved out of position so that we also can clean up the other side. I think that should do. Again, a little bit IPA. And we just wipe this off here. Be careful with the torn arm mechanic. Okay. Okay, so I think we're good with that. So there's some very close here to this this part here that where the actually arm slides on. So we just use some cotton buds to get rid of that lubricant from there. Okay, I think that's it pretty much. So we cleaned off the old grease. So now it's time for some new grease, and I think for the for this part here, for this rail where it's sliding on, we probably just use some synthetic oil. But we will put some grease here back on these other bits and pieces. Okay. Put that here on the rail. Move this guy back. So we spread a little bit more across here. Just wipe that over with the cotton bud a little bit. Okay. And there's a bit of grease left here. Should be applied. I think that should be fine. Okay, so that's already basic lubrication service. So the next step would be to find a replacement belt. I should have something in stock, so let me have a look. Okay, so I found a 22 by 1.2 millimeter belt that seems to be a pretty good fit to the original one. So let's install that one, which is very easy. So we just put that here onto the main pulley. So we have replaced the belt for the linear tracking mechanism. That's it. And I think we are pretty much done with what we got to do here under the cover, under the hood. There's a bit of grease here on it, so I can put a little bit more fresh lithium grease on this gear here as well. That doesn't hurt. And that's it. So we can pretty much close that again the way we removed it, and look at the turntable belt that has to be replaced. But before I'm going to do that, I think I will spend some time with the cover and try to polish it. It's a lot easier to have it off and polish it than instead of having it on the actual unit. But what concerns me a bit about the cover is that this lettering here is printed onto the lid from the top, so I can't really polish here, otherwise I will lose that. Same as the writing here, so I need to cover that up with some tape. And for polishing, what I just use really something that you would use in the automotive world, a big polishing machine, and some compound that you would use to polish headlights on a car, plastic headlights, and just put that over and polish it for probably 5 minutes, and hopefully then we got the shine back, and it's still and it's looking a lot better than it does right now. Yeah, so then I'm going to do that now. I probably make a separate video about polishing turntable lids, even though there's not that much to explain about it, but you might be interested to see that. Okay, so I'm doing this right now and I'll be back. Okay, so I just gave it a quick polish, covered the areas up where I don't want the lettering to be gone. So let's remove that, clean it, and see if we are satisfied with the result, or if a bit more polishing is required. So that's just some Windex. I'm getting rid of the polish and the dirt that came off in the process. Yeah, it's definitely a big improvement compared to before. The problem is that these areas now look really not shiny at all. So I think I will risk it and just gently polish these areas with a polisher. And come back and see if this looks a bit more consistent then, and hopefully did not damage that. Okay, alright, let's do that again. Okay, and here we got the end result. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's pretty good. So that looks so much better than we had that before. So let's reassemble the turntable. Not sure what this is here, so let's see. I'll wipe that off. Oh, that corrosion on the buttons, which is most likely the case. it's inside the button, so there's not really much that we can do. But we can clean the front, do that properly. Okay. Yeah, nice. Last but not least, we need to get a fresh belt. Okay, so I got a new belt here. Seems to be the same size like the original. Yeah, excellent. Okay, we can reinstall it. Maybe we put a drop of oil onto that water bearing here. Okay. A little bit oil here. Okay. Get back the platter on it. Move this guy over. That's looking good. So now the question is with our 45 adapter here. So it's definitely the spring. So we just try if we lock that in, and even with only 2 tabs left, if it will stay where it's supposed to stay or not. Okay, this is now locked and unlocked, or is it always unlocked? Okay, and then it should move all the way here. No. Maybe we just take off the platter again. Have a look at the bottom. So here are these little tabs I was talking about, and yeah, that only works probably when all of them are in there. It's also a bit bent here. Bending plastic is most of the time not a good idea. So I guess, yeah, so we have to live with that and just leave the adapter in here dormant. Yeah, sadly. But well, it's still possible to just use the standard 45 RPM adapter on this turntable. So it will not take away on the functionality. So that's alright. I think there's a bit of oil on it. What's left now is test our turntable, I guess. Okay, so let's play a record on our turntable and see how that sounds. Just close the lid, hit the start button, and here we go. And that marks already the end of today's episode. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe.